that flagrant. You got Warriors -2. It'll be a close game. Draymond is a fascinating player. So he was a second-round pick, total grinder. He is part of my podcast company, The Volume. He's awesome. He was viewed as a tweener and had kind of an odd game, but he's become a huge catalyst. And, it's a lot of people, he can be annoying, and he's got a very Rodman-esque feel, but he's a better offensive player. But he was asked about the ejection in his game.
I'm never going to change the way I play basketball. It's gotten me this far. It's gotten me 3 championships, 4 All-Stars, Defensive Player of the Year. Not going to change now. My reputation is a badge of honor. Not everybody can earn that reputation.
And so what's interesting about Draymond is, society is always trying to kind of push everybody into a box and to be one thing. But look who's really important in the playoffs. Draymond Green, Chris Paul. The Suns are a complete mid-range team. And this is the thing about the NBA. I love analytics, but analytics doesn't tell you about a guy's toughness or his heart, or is he a catalyst in the locker room. I would take Draymond Green's career over Carmelo Anthony or Russell Westbrook. And be honest with you, I think I'd take it over James Harden. James Harden isn't beloved anywhere. James Harden's a guy that could score the basketball and was a comet for about 4 years. And I know he's an all-timer and he'll be a Hall of Famer, but I don't think of James Harden and winning, or Westbrook and winning, and Carmelo and winning. I think of guys who didn't take care of themselves or didn't take care of their game and eroded quickly. Draymond is substantial and authentic and averages 9 points a game and has 3 titles, and this group could probably win another or 2. That matters. Everybody's trying to fit everybody into that analytics 3-point box. But if you really look at the playoffs, Jimmy Butler's not a great shooter. Draymond Green, Chris Paul in the mid-range jumper. These playoffs are once again being controlled by a lot of players that, like Drew Holiday, were overlooked, or Giannis for a long time couldn't hit a free throw. Listen, the 3-point thing is great if you can shoot them like Steph Curry. But I think there's an argument to be made that after Steph, the most valuable player for this franchise over the last 25 years. I mean, Rick Barry, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green. I think he means that much to the franchise. And he's not willing to change who he is. Sometimes you got to deal with some nonsense. But how valuable is he? He's the Rodman of the Bulls. He's the one guy you don't want picking you up at half court. Second story in the NBA that I thought was interesting. So Bill Oram covers the Lakers for The Athletic, and he wrote a story yesterday. Laker fans were throwing up in their mouth that the Lakers should keep Russell Westbrook. And by keeping Westbrook in the first half of the season, show him off and essentially fool the NBA. He's a depreciating asset, as economists call it. And my takeaway is that's what the Lakers have been reduced to, complaining about an HBO series and trying to fool the NBA on Russell Westbrook. By the way, the Niners and the Browns are also trying to fool the NFL with Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield. Everybody knows they're trying to move off him, and there's no bidders. But the one thing I'll say about Jimmy Garoppolo that Westbrook and Baker Mayfield have in common, and it's a thing I talk about a lot, toxicity is a turnoff, and people will tolerate difficult agitators. Baker early, Westbrook early. But the minute you lose some of your skills or erode, people want no part of you. People want no part of Westbrook and no part of Baker. Now, Garoppolo has a lower ceiling, has injuries, and he's pretty expensive. But Garoppolo is going to age well because he's willing to kind of dive into your culture and be part of something that's beyond him. That's the downside to having one of these power brands. Like Baker's got a big brand, but he's his own brand. And so can he fit into your culture? And most people around the league are like, nah, we'll draft a quarterback in the 3rd round. Nah, we'll take a shot on Kenny Pickett. Baker's more talented than Kenny Pickett. I absolutely believe that. If Baker would have been agreeable and more Jimmy Garoppolo, he'd have multiple teams right now. Because you could make the argument, well, I mean, it's Cleveland. They butchered him. He got hurt. It's Cleveland. It's the ownership. That toxicity thing, there'll be times in your life, if you're talented and young, that you can get away with it. But Garoppolo, I think, will move first on the market or get the next best opportunity because he's just easy to get along with. And that matters a ton. Another NBA thought. For years and years, we've known the Splash Brothers on the West Coast, multiple titles. It's Klay Thompson, it's Steph Curry. They apparently have found a third Splash Brother, Jordan Poole. Now, they're not the Splash Brothers, but on the East Coast, the Celtics have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. 5 years, no titles. I think tonight's going to be very interesting. If Giannis goes in again and dominate, and Giannis did not play well in Game 1. He's going nowhere, and Chris Middleton's not there. So Milwaukee dominated the opening game on the road with Giannis having a very average night, no Chris Middleton on the road. I mean, Boston was rested. They had a sweep. They're at home, and it wasn't competitive. What do? I mean, that's the thing with the Splash Brothers and titles. You're going to keep Draymond for another few years. You'll keep Klay Thompson because you've got that 3 titles, the ceiling. I mean, if Golden State knocked off Phoenix, would we be stunned? But if they lose tonight and they go down 0-2 and you can't beat Giannis without Chris Middleton, what do? It's very Toronto Raptors. Like tonight feels like not the end of those 3, but the beginning of discussions of what are we doing here? What are we doing? Are we Toronto? Because Toronto for years, excellent. Number 1 seed, they'd be great, get to the playoffs, swept by LeBron. And at some point, they're like, we can keep doing this Canadian thing. We're nice people up here. But we got to take a big swing. And they didn't get a title. And even though Kawhi left, it was like, that was worth it. Absolutely, that was worth it. Boston loses tonight. I'm not saying it's the end of the 3, but it's the beginning of discussions in the offseason. What are we doing? We're the Celtics. We're not Toronto. Like we're the Celtics. We've got a lot of banners. Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics, Bruins. You win the cup. You win Super Bowls. You win the title. And so I do think it's interesting because the reality is Tatum is a great, great player. Marcus Smart is a heart and soul defender. Jaylen Brown's good sometimes, not consistent. Like a Jordan Poole, just depends on the night. But, Boston has done almost everything right. They really have. They're very Golden State, other side of the country. I mean, they had a coach, Kerr and Brad Stevens, good front office, drafted well, developed very well. The difference is one team got into the 3-ball sooner than the other team, and one team just for years could never get past, LeBron James mattered. But you lose tonight, you can't beat this Milwaukee team because Chris Middleton's going to be back potentially by the end of the series, and he's back next year. And I think what you're going to find with Milwaukee, if they win another title, you're going to find some ring chasers. You're going to find the occasional veteran guy that's like, this has been really good for Drew Holiday. It's been really good for Brook Lopez. It's a great place to play. You don't have to be a star. You can make money. Like last year may have been the weakest Milwaukee team. You start getting Giannis, LeBron in his prime. There's a lot of veteran guys, the David West kind of guys, the Ray Allen, kind of feel like a title. It's good for my brand. I got 1. I'd like to have 2, 3.